Out of all the gaming monitors I've tested, this $90 one might be the best deal I've ever seen. And in 2025, with gaming GPUs costing more than ever, saving money anywhere else in your setup makes a huge difference. So when I first ordered this, I expected just another cheap panel with all the usual flaws. But after 185 days of real-world use, it's holding up way better than I thought. But of course, at this price, compromises had to be made. But here's the real question. Can a monitor this cheap actually be good, or are the compromises too much to ignore? This is the KOORUI G2411P, a 180Hz monitor that I bought brand new for just 126 Canadian dollars, or $90 US. And in this video, we're breaking down what it gets right, where it falls short, and whether it's worth your hard-earned money. Now, I'll be honest, I had never even heard of this brand until last year, and when I saw that there were multiple monitors with completely different specs jammed into the same listing, I was skeptical. There was no easy way to tell how buyers felt about this specific one without manually scrolling through thousands of reviews for different models. Still, a 180Hz panel at that price, the refresh rate alone was worth it to me. I mean, the last time I bought a 1080p monitor, it was a 144Hz Dell S2721HGF, which costed me like twice of this one, so if the KOORUI is even half as good, I'll take it. And I ended up buying it right before it went out of stock, and strangely, it's never been relisted on Amazon.ca since. At the time though, nothing came close in terms of hertz per dollar value, especially since it's a 180Hz panel, which is almost unheard of under $100. I say almost because there is one monitor that currently offers the same specs for the same price, but we'll talk about that later. As for the rest of the specs, it's a 24.5-inch 1080p panel with a 3000:1 contrast ratio, adaptive sync support, and supposedly 99% sRGB coverage, and 125% sRGB coverage at the same time. Yeah, the listing has a few issues, like saying 170Hz in the title but 180Hz in the images, but whatever. What really matters is how the thing actually performs. Out of the box, I wasn't expecting much, and not much was exactly what I got. It came with a very bare-bones stand, really basic without height adjustment, but decent enough tilt angles. I was gonna put this thing on a monitor arm anyways, so personally that wasn't an issue. What was an issue though was the very short, average size power cable. This cable makes it incredibly inconvenient for cable management and was barely long enough to work with my standing desk without ripping apart. Yeah, too bad my wall outlets aren't halfway up the wall. Thank you, KOORUI, for this short-ass cable. But these compromises are what you'd expect at this price. I'm just hoping that they didn't compromise on the monitor itself, and that's where things started to surprise me. Let's start with the good surprises, because honestly, this monitor impressed me way more than it disappointed me. First off, the screen actually looks way better than I expected. At 24.5 inches, it actually has a pretty decent pixel density at 89 pixels per inch. Very sharp and dense enough to not notice any individual pixels that you might see on larger sized 27-inch 1080p monitors. For context, this is my main 1440p 27-inch monitor, the KOORUI GN05 that I bought earlier last year. While 1080p is barely more than half the pixel count of 1440p, the decrease in screen size makes it so you only lose 18% of the pixel density. So having them side by side wasn't nearly as jarring on the eyes as you might expect. What actually beats my main monitor though is the settings menu. Despite being the cheaper option, it includes all the same controls, plus an extra MPRT mode to reduce motion blur, which we'll talk about a bit later in the video. It also offers 2 HDMI ports and 1 display port. So if you want to connect multiple consoles or anything really, switching between them will work seamlessly. And of course, the 180Hz refresh rate. 180Hz is at the point where it's already so smooth that it's almost indistinguishable from 240Hz, unless you're actively switching between the two or just have better eyes than I do. What I can notice though is ghosting. With a sub $100 monitor, you would expect it to be pretty bad, but this panel is actually a step up from my Dell. Obviously, it's still not great, but the ghosting isn't a complete deal breaker considering its price, but it is something to keep in mind for sure. Something else that you should keep in mind is the cleanest mousepad in the game. I've been using it for the past few months, and unlike the monitor, you're making absolutely no compromises with its absolutely massive size, so you'll never have to worry about running out of mouse space. So be sure to get one for yourself using the link in the description. Anyways, back to the video. Now at this point, you might be thinking, okay, it's decent for $90, but what's the catch? Well, here's where things begin to fall apart. Out of the box, the colors on the 25E3A look pretty decent in some cases, but it struggles a lot with producing orange and gold colors. You'd think a quick calibration would fix it, and yes, it certainly would, whether you're using the monitor settings or software like the Nvidia app to adjust the values. However, this only works if the screen is supposed to be completely orange. In scenes where it isn't the only color, which is about 99% of the time, the oranges are so far off that correcting them is not worth ruining the rest of the colors. But orange isn't the only color it can't get right. As a reference, here's the 25E3A on the right against my main GN05 on the left. Both of these are VA panels using identical settings in DCI-P3 mode, so neither of them are going to have the best colors compared to OLED, for example. But even then, you can see that the GN05 hits the green tones just about perfectly, whereas the 25E3A is looking a little bit off. I don't even need a color calibration tool to show you that the gap is huge between the two. The 25E3A is giving off much more of a lawn green than the lime green it's supposed to be, with no way to fix it without adjusting the hue, which would end up ruining a bunch of other tones. And despite the huge 99% sRGB claim in the listing, the actual sRGB mode just dulls every color and doesn't fix the greens. It doesn't really matter if it covers 99% of the color space when the factory color calibration and screen quality are this poor. So if you're trying to watch a cucumber cutting compilation with pristine color accuracy, please do not buy this monitor. Also, brightness. The peak brightness is about 20% dimmer. Not great, considering the 1440p is not very bright already at 300 nits, which I found to be barely enough in a room that gets a lot of natural light. For me personally, and maybe you as well, I kind of passed off the color inaccuracies as just looking different, because I don't care at all about accurate color. I can't lie, I didn't even notice the greens or oranges were that bad until I compared them this week. That says a lot because I've watched my fair share of TV shows, YouTube videos, and movies on this thing, and the colors never really bothered me. Luckily enough, that was it for my issues with the monitor. But earlier, I mentioned that there is currently one monitor that offers the same specs at the same price. That monitor is the SANSUI ES-G24F4L. What's interesting is that this SANSUI monitor shares a lot in common with the 25E3A. Same resolution, same screen size, and almost the exact same feature set. So if you happen to come across the SANSUI while this one is out of stock, just know it's likely offering nearly the same experience and could be a solid alternative. Despite the 25E3A coming with quite the list of flaws, you may be wondering why I still daily drive this $90 monitor. Though it may not be the perfect monitor for every task, it is perfect for a lot of use cases. As a secondary monitor for editing, productivity, and even competitive gaming on a budget. It's also one of the best monitors you can get to connect a gaming laptop if you're just trying to bypass the integrated graphics for better performance. That said, I wouldn't recommend this as your main monitor if you care a lot about image quality. The weird green tones, yellows, and ghosting would get annoying pretty quick. But to be fair, if you do care about all those things, you're probably not even shopping in the $100 monitor market anyway. For anyone who just wants a high refresh rate monitor for less than $100, I think the compromises that KOORUI made with their 25E3A make a lot of sense at this price. The goal was to make a 180Hz gaming monitor available for a cheap price, and in that case, I think they absolutely succeeded. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see how an $87 GPU beats the RTX 3060, watch this video next.